It's another month, and that means it's time for all booked, another of our all booked book discussions. We are really excited about uh, what awaits us in children's literature in March, and we will jump right in with the new releases coming out this month.
Okay, one I am really excited about is this little environmentalist. Um, we've sent a couple of these in our book boxes, and this whole series is just really cute. My favorite thing about it is that I learn things when I read these books too. Um, most of the environmentalists they talk about in the actual text of the book, I had never heard of before. But some of the ones in the back I had and didn't know they were environmentalists, like Morgan Freeman is in the back, like in one of the little faces. Let's see. I guess like little people in the back to give you more information. So he was one. Lady Bird Johnson and Frank Lloyd Wright were all listed as environmentalists in the back. So that was pretty cool.
I didn't know that. I really love those books too, though, and I feel the same way. It's a board book, but there's always something to learn. So those are my favorite. I'm excited for that one for sure.
I was also excited to see there's a new ABC book coming from Baby Lit, and Baby Lit also has put out some really great board books. And ABC books, I feel like that's can be a dangerous territory. That path has been trod a lot of times by kids' books, but this one actually looks really promising. I'm excited to add it to our shelf because the illustrations, it's called F is for Fairy Tale, I think. That's the title. And yeah, they just looked like it was going to be a really fun, festive celebration of the ABCs.
Yeah, we don't have physical copies of that one yet, but this is one we have in the series as is for school. And it's like a little bit bigger compared to the other ones, which is fun. And yeah, I think the vintage illustrations are really cool. And I know Chan, you will be excited about the old boat coming out by the
Absolutely.
Humphrey brothers.
Yeah, I was so excited to see that coming out in picture books. So just last month we were talking about how the old truck was high on at least my list for Caldecott honor. And so I was thrilled to see that the Pumphrey brothers have another picture book of the same vein coming out called The Old Boat. I don't think it's a sequel or anything, but it's in the same style, that really fun retro custom stamp look. And it again is a celebration of family and heritage. And I think it's going to be a really fun title to have on the shelf next to the old truck. Two beautiful books. I'm also really excited because um, another book coming out this month is On the Other Side of the Forest, and it has that very soft illustration style that just kind of begs you to put it in the classic category. And I'm not putting it in the classic category just yet, but it had a fun story development, very simple. The story of a dad and son rabbit who live at the edge of a forest and are curious about what's on the other side of the forest, but no one has gone through the dense forest to find out what. And so they begin to build a tower, and to earn supplies to build the tower, they bake fresh bread every day. Anyway, it's kind of quirky. The ending is terrific, really clever, and I'm really excited for that one as well.
I haven't read it yet, but with the daily bread baking and Easter coming up, it sounds like the perfect pandemic Easter book with the sourdough rage and bunnies.
Yeah, it sure does. I'm really excited about the Ollie and Basil, the Dashing Frogs of Travel book. So it's written by Megan Hess, who wrote this book called Clarice, the Chicest Mouse in Paris. And I just love her illustration style. So she's a fashion designer, and that really comes through in her artwork in the book. So a lot of it looks kind of like sketches. And there you go. You see the dashing frogs.
Yeah,
So
cool.
I'm excited to get to see what she writes about these cute little guys who help Clarice, this little mountain mouse, make her way to Paris. So it'll be fun to see what she does with those frogs.
Are those pages gilt on the edges? I couldn't.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah. So really cute. This gold along the edges of the book. It's so cute.
Thank you. I'm excited for that new one. One of the chapter books that I'm excited about is called The House That Wasn't There, and it's by Alanna K Arnold. So she also wrote A Boy Called Bat, and we actually sent this in the book or chapter book box, I think a few years ago. But I love this one, and it's like one of the go-to ones in my mind when I think about books that help foster empathy. And The House That Wasn't There, her new book, sounds super fun, and it's about two kids, and one just moved in to Southern California, and they kind of are wary of each other, and it sounds like they might end up becoming friends in the book. And it also says that there are some magical puzzles inside the book, so it sounds like it's going to be another good one.
Yeah, I thought that it sounded fun. And just to jump back real quick to the baking point, Jane, another book coming out, another chapter book coming out in March. All You Need Is Love, and that's KNEAD, need. I thought that might be a really fitting title with the baking, as you mentioned, that's been happening over the past year. So I'm looking forward to checking that one out. It's the story of a young girl who ends up leaving Barcelona, I think, to visit her grandma, and she's not excited to go, but when she gets there, she discovers this passion for baking with her grandma, and it sounds like a promising story of family and overcoming challenges and celebration of baking, which might be just right for this moment. And there's also a really exciting the first installment of a new series. The series is called Wilderlore, and the first book is The Accidental Apprentice, and this to me just sounds like a great read. The main character is this little boy who wants nothing to do with adventure, and so he thinks he's safe because he's an apprentice to the town mushroom finder, I think is the occupation. So he thinks he's good to go, but ends up instead launching himself into a world of beasts, forbidden beasts, and friendship, and it looks really promising as the first of a new series.
I love series. Once you find one you love, you don't have to make any decisions about what you're going to read next. Just keep going through the series.
True.
Okay, guys, speaking of the pandemic, everyone needs something to celebrate. So can we talk about holidays next? What holidays are coming up?
Definitely.
All right, well, we got you outnumbered, Chan, so we're just going to go ahead with talking about Women's History Month first.
All for that. Great choice.
We already talked about this little series, but if you are getting into this little series, they have this little Trailblazer, which is a girl power primer. So this is a really fun one for Women's History Month. It has Rosa Parks and Maria Tallchief and lots of really great women in it. So that's definitely one worth pulling out this month.
Yeah. One that I pulled out on my shelves is Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. I love this one, and one of their latest in the series is Goodnight Stories this one is 100 Tales of Extraordinary Women, and the newest one is 100 Immigrant Women Who Changed the World. Okay. And this series is really fun because each page has a little bio on a woman and then a really fun illustration, and they're all different, and it has a quote from them too. So this one is just super fun, and you learn a lot, and it's engaging. So I'm excited to read this next one in the series.
I feel like that one is like a really great like coffee table book too.
Yes.
Children's books are for adults too, but I feel like that one especially, anyone would be proud to have that on their coffee table.
Definitely, and I love.
But it's really beautiful.
Yeah. And the range of women that it includes is really great because there's something for everyone to be interested in. So
That's a good point. I picked this cute little book about Marie Curie, or as a lot of us know her, Madame Curie. And I just love these little board books that teach so briefly and simply about these famous women. You know, this scientist, you know, she always wanted to be a scientist and won a Nobel Prize, and you can learn that in just a few short board book pages. So that's a fun one too.
My boys both love that one, which like I wasn't entirely expecting, but they both just really enjoy it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a good one.
On the note of women scientists and the extra hurdles that they have had to overcome in history, I really enjoyed a book called Dinosaur Lady. Is that the right?
I like that one too.
Yeah, this one is so great. It's the story of Mary Anning, and fun trivia fact about this book: she actually is given credit for being the person that the tongue twister she sells shells by the seashore. That presumably is describing Mary Anning, because she lived in England and she would scour the seashore finding these shells to sell to tourists in the area. And in her exploring on the shore, one day she comes across something that doesn't just look like a simple little seashell, and she discovers fossils of a dinosaur. And from there, she excavates, she recruits help to excavate, and basically establishes the field of paleontology. But she also has to overcome a lot of obstacles because she's not given credit and not given the time of day by the scientific groups that were, men only groups of the time. So it also describes the endurance and the perseverance that she shows to do what she does. Anyway, it's a really fun story.
I love that one. I was also hoping that you were going to say the tongue twister 5 times fast.
Barely stumbled through it once. So that's a tough one.
And I mean, we talk about this all the time for Book Crew, but I think Women's History Month is a great time to remember that, like, just because a book has a girl main character doesn't mean it's a girl book. And there are like so many amazing stories with girl protagonists and boy protagonists that can be enjoyed universally. That's something I've really loved experiencing with my boys is, they're happy to read anything. If it's a good story, they like it.
Yes, very good point, Jane.
We got a lot of boys between us, so we can speak to this personally.
That's right.
Should we jump into St. Patrick's Day? Talking about that. One of the ones that is one of my favorite St. Patrick's books is 3 Ways to Trap a Leprechaun. And I feel like with this holiday, there are a lot of books that are so-so on this topic, but this one I think does a really good job. It's fun, and you see the sneaky leprechaun and they're trying to catch it, and it's a great one to read for the holiday and get your kids excited and maybe have them try and make a trap for a leprechaun.
I feel like I've been living under a rock, but I work with some of the young ladies at our church group, and they were talking about making leprechaun traps, and I've never made one, so I'll have to get the book and do it with my voice this year.
Yeah,
Our boys. Go ahead, Jen.
Our boys have already started drawing their plans for this year's trap. It's a big deal. Very exciting.
That's what I was going to say. So,
yeah.
So say start early. I could get a lot of mileage out of this activity.
Right. Yeah. St. Patrick's Day has surprisingly become like a really fun, one of the favorite holidays at our house, which is kind of surprising because I feel like I grew up and like you wore green and that was kind of it. But we've discovered the love of making corned beef and cabbage on St. Patrick's Day, and so that's a fun activity. And just learning about Ireland, Chandler really likes Ireland, so we like to use St. Patrick's Day to teach our kids a little bit more about that. And that book, Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland, will teach you a little bit more about what St. Patrick's Day is all about. So lots of fun stuff going on with St. Patrick's Day for sure.
Absolutely. We are big fans of St. Patrick's Day, and speaking of, well, I don't claim Irish heritage, but I Tommy DePaula did, and um, it was sad to lose him last year. But he made such amazing contributions to the world of children's literature, and was always very proud, and did a lot of work in celebrating his Irish heritage. And one of my favorites, is a book that he wrote that's perfect for St. Patrick's Day, called Jamie O'Rourke and the Giant Potato, Big Potato.
I think Big Potato.
I think that's right, Jane. This is such a tongue-in-cheek story about Jamie O'Rourke, who is the quote laziest man in Ireland. And my favorite part of the book, I think it has a lot of great moments, but I think one of my favorites is that he's laying in bed and his wife is doing all of the work, and she comes in and she can't do any more work because she's hurt her back. And so they're going to starve to death. And Jamie finally gets out of bed, but it's not to go work, it's to go confess to the priest because they're going to starve to death. On his way to the priest, he comes across a magic seed. I think he trades for it, and it grows a humongous potato, or as the book calls it, a pratie. And from there, I know you've read it as well, Jane, so I won't say that all that happens, but from there, he's able to leverage that into a very good lifestyle for himself.
Any book illustrated by Tommy DePaula, I'm happy to read.
Yeah, I think you didn't. I think that I got a kick out of the way that Jamie can kick back and enjoy the good life, but it's certainly not a example or a primer on industry or work ethic. He's the laziest man in Ireland.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's important to be able to read kids' books that don't always have you don't want them to have negative messaging, but I think they can also be really great conversation starters to be like, hey, would we behave like the character in this book? No, what was good, what was bad? Yeah. So.
Yeah. I like that, Jane. That's so true. So true.
Well, I'm gonna have to try to get more into St. Patrick's Day, knowing that it can be such a big deal.
No, me too. That book sounds really fun. I haven't read that one, so I'm gonna have to grab some more. You guys are inspiring me to make it more of a fun holiday.
All right. Oh, go ahead, Jan.
Spring, and to look forward to in general, and children's books. I think that, I love the changing seasons, and I love the chance to pull out seasonal titles. And probably for me, the winter and the approaching Christmas holiday is maybe the most exciting, but there's just something very satisfying about putting away the winter books and pulling out the spring books once we've survived another cold winter. So it's always really exciting to pull out the spring books. And last year, there was a new board book that came out called Beautiful Eggs. And I loved this because I'm curious about the tradition of painting eggs. Why do we do that? And this simple little board book had some really great tidbits of information about the history and how eggs are painted in different cultures. And I really enjoy that I guess I got ahead of myself a little bit. I already jumped into Easter titles, but.
Great. Chan, if you like painted eggs, have you read Richenka's Eggs?
I have not yet.
This is a classic in my book. You should check it out.
That one is great.
Patricia Plocko, also someone I will always read something if she's written or illustrated it.
I just saw the cover of the Beautiful Eggs book that you were talking about, Chandler, and it looks so good. I'm excited to read that one.
Yeah, I really like that one.
So I feel like books are a fantastic Easter basket thing, but I feel like there's a couple different directions you can go with it. You can go very Eastery, or Easter Bunny, Eastery. You can go Christian, Eastery with Christ, or you can go just get them a great book for their Easter basket. Do you guys fall into one camp or the other? Any books of your book?
I think I'm more of a fan of like getting the more specific Easter books, whichever they might be, and having those through like on my bookshelf to read through the month before, and then doing like a more of like a all year round book for an Easter basket.
Yeah, I like that too. I was up at my mom's house earlier, and I was looking for this one that I remembered from my childhood at Easter, The Country Bunny. Have you guys read this one?
Yes.
It looks familiar, but I don't know that I remember it.
It's just like, so the mom is the Easter Bunny here, and she's like delivering, well, she's helping, but she delivers this really beautiful egg. I'm gonna have to go reread it. I just like have lots of fond memories of it. And my mom, growing up, she did a really good job of, like, if the book was for us, she would put like a book plate in it with our name on it. So I just got a collection of my books that my mom had found that were at my house but were actually hers. So it makes me want to start doing that with our kids so they can take book collections with them when they go.
That is so fun. I'm so glad your mom still has all of those, and that's so cool.
Me too.
Like it really does bring back lots of memories, but you just want to reread them because bring them all back.
We like to have both types of Easter books on our shelf, and when it comes to like the Easter books that tell the Easter story, the religious part of the celebration, I think it can be tough to actually find some that seem high quality. Some of those can seem very low quality, which makes them less enjoyable. But a couple that I've come across that I really enjoy. There's one called "'Twas the Morning of Easter," and that's fun because that tracks the cadence of the "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" poem. So it's a fun connection there. And another that I just saw this year, "The Donkey That No One Could Ride," which I have not read the whole thing yet, but it looked very promising. It's just a very fun angle to take about the last week of the Easter week, and when Christ comes into Jerusalem riding a donkey, and this looked like it was a fun attempt to create the backstory of that donkey, why it hadn't been ridden by anyone else yet, and it looked like a really cute little character, and I'm excited to get that one and read it with the kids. I think that will be a fun way to celebrate Easter and keep it with a religious aspect, but not overly serious.
Fun, and I want to bring up Jane Foster's Easter because we love her Jane Foster's ABCs, and I'm sure her Easter book is just as great. Have any of you guys read her Easter one?
I haven't read her Easter one, but I love her ABC one.
Yes, me too, for sure. And let's be honest, sometimes Easter comes before the really good weather of spring, so now we can jump into spring. One spring book, a board book, I wish I had it here with me, but it's called Color Wonder Spring, and it has these cute little flowers on each page. It's a board book, and you can change the dial so you can see like what yellow and blue make green, and it's just a really cute spring and color book. So that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, my boys love that one too.
Mm-hmm.
Those books that kind of slow down to read it because you like wait for the kids to turn the dials, and
yes, for sure.
For better or for worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the spring books that I really like is called Plant the Tiny Seed. And I'm generally a fan of interactive books. I think the ones where you like press the button or shake the book are really fun, but this one kind of goes beyond that, and you get to clap and like wiggle your fingers to make things happen, and you're like planting seeds and helping them grow into these beautiful flowers. And I just like that it kind of pushes it a little bit further, doing those more unique actions.
I like those too, but they're interactive, but I don't know. Sometimes my boys can be kind of hard on lift to flat books. So for them to be interactive and also very sturdy.
Yeah, also helps get some wiggles out.
Yeah.
I came across a new book that I want to add to my spring collection this year. It's called Patience Miyuki, and it was a really sweet little tale, really artistic illustrations, very much on the abstract and interpretive side, but still really fun for even kids to enjoy. And it's this story of a little girl who um, is very excited for the first day of spring, and she goes out to the garden with her grandpa, and she becomes so caught up. There's one flower in the garden that hasn't blossomed, and she just gets really caught up in wanting that flower to blossom. And the grandpa tells her that the flower needs the purest water to blossom. And so she's been so excited for the first day of spring, and now this one flower among the whole garden hasn't blossomed. And so she goes on a day-long trek to try to find the purest water to help the flower blossom, which is very sweet and very, loving of her. But it also is a lesson in the end on mindfulness and patience, which comes from the title. But she learns that, yeah, sometimes we want things to happen right away. She wants that beautiful flower to open up on the first day of spring, but she spins her wheels. In the end, she ends up, spinning her wheels, spending a lot of time not necessarily soaking up the first day of spring like she wanted, and she just needed to wait for the second day of spring for things to come around. And it was a great lesson on being a little patient, not trying to rush things that just need a little time to develop.
Yeah, that sounds like a good reminder for all of us.
Yeah. I think that takes us to talking about what's been happening on the platform, which this is one of my favorite areas to keep an eye on. I love the way that the reading platform helps me discover new titles just by seeing what other people are reading. I feel like it's those fortuitous, serendipitous discoveries, and they're really fun. And some of my favorites that I saw happening on the platform right now, one is I did not realize that Octavia Spencer had written a couple of middle grade novels.
Really?
Yeah. She has a series called Randy Rhodes Ninja Detective. I think it was published in 2013, so they've been out for a little while now, and I just hadn't come across them yet. And they look really promising, really fun. And so those showed up on the platform, and I added those to my TBR pile. And then I also saw a few people reading some Gordon Corman titles, and they were reading a couple that I haven't read myself, like The Unteachables, and I know he just released another one called Unplugged that looks pretty interesting. It's about a group of kids who get stuck at summer camp without technology, without being able to plug in their phones, hence the title, or their devices. So I think that could be a fun summer read. But I did just read his book Notorious, and I would definitely recommend that one. That was a really good mystery set in this small town that, if I remember right, it was right on the border of, like, half the town is in America and half the town is in Canada. Okay. And the main character, this girl, her dad is I think he's part of the Canadian Border Patrol. And so it just had some really funny little nuances about that. Like, half the week the Americans are patrolling and half the week the Canadians. And I can't remember if maybe they switched the flag halfway through the week that's on the lighthouse, but just some really fun little things there. But the real meat of the story is that it used to be, like, this little quiet town used to be a hangout, like a refuge for mob bosses. And so this girl, I've messed this up a little bit. There's kind of two main characters, I guess. There's a boy who gets stuck in this town to recover from a surgery, and he meets this very gregarious, very outgoing girl who's just a lot of fun, but she believes in all of these mafia stories. So everyone has kind of, like, written her off as a lunatic, but together they explore and they determine that it actually is real. And it was a really fun story.
Nice. Is that middle grade? What age is that for?
That's middle grade, yeah. 8 to 12, 8 to 10.
Cool.
Nice.
Well, these haven't surfaced on the platform that I saw, but I mean, they're there, but not being read a lot right now, at least that I know of. I guess I better go check my stats. But these are on our TBR list, and I hadn't realized before I grabbed them both that they're both by Kate DiCamillo. So Mercy Watson is a whole series. We got the first one for Fitz for Christmas, and then The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. Heard really great things about that one. So those are our coming up read alouds for our family. Excited about those.
That's fun. I didn't see those on the platform right now either. I'm sure someone is reading those, but what is getting some attention is her book Flora and Ulysses, which just came out as a movie on Disney Plus. So that's a fun one to go check out, read it, and then watch the show as a family.
Fun. Well, if anyone else has something to say on the platform, that's great. Otherwise, I'll share a little reading tip with you.
Let's hear it.
We move into it. All right. So we've talked a little bit, my husband and I, we have a 3.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and our 3.5-year-old kind of came into this world loving books. So we just thought, babies just like books. But our baby girl, she just, you pull out a book and she runs the other way. You guys have probably experienced that. You put some in front of her, and she just like crawls over them. So we've heard though that, according to some studies, that one of the best ways to help your babies or your child like books is to consistently have fresh books available. So I thought that was a great tip. I know sometimes we have, books in this room and that room, and so just switching things up is a good way. But we love our Bookru subscription. Get fresh books every month. So, or our weekly library trip too. But getting new books consistently in front of your kids will help them to find one they love and to start loving books themselves. So
the good news is that she's coming around. It's taking her a little longer than her brother, but she doesn't always run away now. She does sometimes linger for a moment or two.
That's right.
Yeah, I feel like I had this with our kids too. My oldest, I don't know, seemed to pick it up faster. But yeah, just consistently reading to them and showing them that it's fun and that it's part of our family culture and something to look forward to. The other thing, I don't know that, I don't want to say book people because we're book people, but our boys use books for building sometimes. Like they'll open them up and make towers out of them. And I worried about that at first. And I was like, well, they're enjoying books. I'll let them enjoy books. They're not damaging them. However, they want to enjoy books. And I don't know if that helped, but they certainly liked building with books for a while, and now they've phased out of it and both love to read. So I think making books accessible and letting them explore them on their own terms is really helpful.
That's really fun, Jane. I'm glad you shared that.
Pro tip, use blocks and books, and then you don't have to open the books and you can stack them up.
So cute.
Well, with that, we'll move into the last little part that we wanted to talk about, and that is we read so many books to put together our book clubs, the books that will actually be featured in our subscription boxes in each book club. And we have our chapter book box, we have our picture book box, and our board book box. And one of the toughest decisions is which books are going to get to go into the box, and sometimes that leaves some really fun books that on the table or on the chopping floor. They didn't get into the box, but they were really fun, and so we thought it might be fun to share some of those books that we really enjoyed and that aren't coming in a box. And just as a reminder, on our platform, you can always go to a book specific page on the platform and find for mini books a content guide for parents, and you can see if there are any notes about content in a book that you might want to be aware of as a parent, language, violence, or other things like that. And I mention that now just because some of these books, that is sometimes the reason that they don't make into a box, is because there's some content that that we're not sure that would that other families would be comfortable with. So with these, maybe keep that in mind, that you can always check out the book page to check for content. So the one that I wanted to mention, it was so fun. It's called In the Red, and it just seems so timely because it's about humans have colonized Mars and they're living in a settlement on Mars, and where we just had a Mars landing, was it last week or this past week? It just barely happened. This was so fun to read. In my mind, it felt like a middle grade version of The Martian, just a really engaging. Some space books I feel like can feel very alien to like human Earth experience, but this one, they were just nailing the author. I didn't make a note in front of me. It's Christopher Spindler, I think. But he just was nailing the tone. Like it just felt like human experience on Mars. Everything felt like you could understand and relate, but there was also this very suspenseful aspect to it because they're on Mars and they're, one malfunction away from like instantly dying from poisoning or freezing to death. And the main character struggles from anxiety, and it wasn't forced. It wasn't like set up or didactic or anything about his condition. It just was like he was fine until he had to put on the spacesuit that you wear when you're headed out of the dome that protects the colony. And as soon as he put that on, he just would be subject to panic attacks. And so of course that heightens also the suspense of what's going to happen. So anyway, that's a really fun read that I enjoyed, but won't be in a box.
That one does sound really fun. One other one that I want to share that is really great, but also won't be in a book or box, is called Harriet the Invincible, and it's part of the Hamster Princess series. And this one is great. It has a really strong female hamster character, and she loves math, particularly fractions, which is a great example, I think. And she goes on this quest to save a prince. So it's kind of opposite, and it's based off of a Sleeping Beauty story loosely, which is also fun. And there are caption bubbles throughout these images. And this one didn't get chosen ultimately because while we believe in gender neutral books and that just because there's a girl character, it can be enjoyed by boys, this one is enjoyed by boys as well, but it's a little bit of a harder sell for those who have boys that might be less interested in a book that says princess on the cover, and also the cover has glitter on it. So if it were not for those things, it probably would have gotten sent, but this one's really great and it's a really fun read. So we recommend it still.
Just a quick thought on that point, Becca. It's such a, and Jane, you mentioned this already on this call, but it reminds me that the fact that the title says princess, that in, there's a great book out there about Pixar's history called Creativity Inc. And the founder of Pixar talks about like their journey. And when he talks about the merger with Disney, they were then working on The Princess and the Frog. And it just, that your comment reminds me that was like a sticking point about that show, is that Disney was telling them, we can't call it The Princess and the Frog. This is my memory of what was happening. Disney was saying, from a marketing perspective, we shouldn't call it The Princess and the Frog because half of people will tune out because you said princess. And that's what Ed Catmull feels like happened to a large extent. Like, it was a great story, a great movie. I think in time, like, more people have been open to watching it and experiencing it and realized that it is a good movie, although the shadow people do scare our kids to death. So we only haven't, I think they did watch it, but then they got scarred by that part. But the storyline, it was a good story, but it didn't do well initially because of that. So yeah, I guess it's a lesson. You can't judge a book by its cover, and you can't judge the quality of the story by the title or be afraid of certain words like that.
Definitely. I think that's a really interesting point. And for those that do have boys that would be less interested in a book like this, but want to get them more interested, I think reading this one aloud would be a really good option. And I think it would help introduce them to know that this book isn't a girl book.
I think that is a wrap, unless anyone else has something to bring up.
No, this has been fun.
Yeah, I put in one little snippet that we are interested in hearing if you have any reading wins. And I just want to share one that I had really fast with my baby boy. He's 6 months tomorrow, and he just learned to give kisses on the cheek just like a week ago. And we were reading this book called A Book of Kisses. And right after reading this book all about kisses and all the different types of kisses, on the next book he started kissing the bunnies in the book on the pages, and it was a win for me with him that little, just kind of knowing that it's going in his brain and that he's getting it little by little.
That's so cute.
That is so sweet. Oh my goodness.
All right, we can't possibly end on a better note than that. So, baby kisses. Well, this has been fun. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.
We'll see ya.
Bye.